I would be here as a guest if this was open somewhere else. So I was like, might as well own it while I'm at it. You know, it's like I was looking for this place, so I just decided to like, build it.
Yeah.
You know, that was kind of how my motivational factor was like, I don't want to drive to Cambridge all the time. I want to watch soccer every day, and I want to be around people that are intelligent and like that kind of culture, because it's not just watching a soccer match. You're hearing stories behind why they like that, because it's not like, hey, the Red Sox are on and we're from Boston, that's easy. This is like, oh, why do you like Liverpool? Like I told you in the beginning, it's my grandmother was from there, my grandfather loved soccer. Everything I got when I was a kid was, a calendar, a bag, a scarf, a jersey, every, Christmas, birthday, whatever, And
it's part of the culture.
Exactly. And it was like, then you find someone else, and you're like, well, why do you like it? Well, I'm from there. And it's like, oh, my dad, served in, the war, and he was always stationed in England and stuff like that. So that was like also part of it. It's like, you hear those stories and they're cool.
Yeah.
It's like, you want to be like, you want to hear that stuff and go, oh, this guy really likes it.
This episode made possible by Restaurant Systems Pro. With excitement, allow me to introduce to you today's guest, owner and pub director at June Cork Pub, John Bushnell. My man John, are you feeling unstoppable today?
Despite people trying to stop me, I feel unstoppable every day.
Let's cheers to that. We got some
go,
pints poured, just some Guinness here. I'm gonna take a sip real quick.
Best part about the job.
Something about pint of Guinness. Yeah, it's just on tap, man.
Oh, I know.
It's so good.
I have the regional director. He's from Ireland, so he knows what he's talking about. And I have one of, like, on record, the best pours of Guinness.
Really?
Like, do it properly. There's a way to do it, the way to store it, the way to run the lines. And, like, he brings people in to see the operation.
Yeah.
So, like, a new pub would start, and he's like, hey, this is how you do Guinness.
Do you know the name Jack McGarry from Dead Rabbit?
I don't.
So he has like this Irish pub in New York that they're scaling across the country.
Okay.
And when I thought of what you were doing here and like I don't know, man. It's just I think we Americans take English and Irish culture for granted. We kind of Americanize and bastardize it.
Yep.
And he's like on this mission to like revitalize like what true English and Irish culture is.
Yep.
So,
I'll look him up.
He's focused on Irish culture, but I feel like what you're doing with June Cork is similar.
I have to be very specific and say, like, I say British because Ireland went to great lengths to now be part of Britain, so I can't be disrespectful and say,
there is a difference.
Yeah, there is a difference, and again, welcome all people, but there has to be a difference, and there is, and there's just subtle differences, but yeah, if you start lumping them in, they'll be quick to point out.
Yeah, man. So aside from this great establishment that you've created, I'm talking to you today because your friend Tony Carbone called you out to be a guest on the show. That was literally less than 24 hours ago.
Yeah, that's how close
I tagged you on an Instagram, and that day, like hours later, you were on my calendar.
Yep.
So we're less than 24 hours away since I spoke to Tony. We're talking to you now. I can't wait to find out what you got going on here, how you got to where you are, the challenges you overcame along the way. But let's get that motivational, inspirational ball rolling with a success quarter mantra. What do you got for us?
Well, what I say to everybody is I have no restaurant experience prior to this, but what I'm trying to do is host a party every day and make sure everyone's having a good time, whatever they're here to do, why they came in, whether it's just to, get some solitude and sit at a true British pub, or to meet new friends. So I'm a host of a party every day, and I just want people to come in and have a good time and come back the next time they feel like they want something similar to that experience.
What's the difference between hosting a party and being the party?
Well, I want to make sure that everyone's having a good time for the different reason why they came in. Not everyone's coming in to, socialize. They might actually want to, sit down in a quiet corner, read, do their work, but be around. What I always talk to pubs being is being like a gift to the neighborhood. When you like walk out the door, you're going to your local pub. You're just, that's where I go. Yes, I can go out to dinner at any million locations, but a pub by definition I feel is a place where you're welcomed, and almost like Cheers when you think about back to those times in the 80s. But you walk in the door, you feel welcome for the reason why you were there.
Right. Now, I talk about this a lot in the show. There's this book out there called America Walked Into a Bar. I don't know if you've ever heard about it.
No.
So they get into like the history of pubs in America. I know the public house came from England. It was originated in England, but when the Americas, it's English culture, right? When they were establishing the Americas, in order for you to start a town, the first the first establishment you needed in that town to be like before a post office, before a police department, before a town hall, before a church, you needed a public house. That was like the thing that you needed to be like to establish a town. And it was literally where you got everything. It was where you got your mail. It's where you got your news. It's where you got your politics. It's where you got your entertainment. It's where you got your drinks. Like it was to your point, like this place where people just come together. And
that's what I was looking for, just to make it a place where, again, everyone felt welcome.
I think we've forgotten what that is in the industry. Like, what's going through your mind as I say that? Well,
I just think like people are so niche oriented, and you can get that experience anywhere. But in my brain, like, I'm from a town that has a ton of restaurants, and you frequent either the one that you went to the first time you felt included or welcome, or you just had a great experience there, and then you can walk by one and just be like, I've never been in there, I don't know what it is, you know what I mean? And I want people to walk by and be like, I don't know what it is, but I want to go in there, rather than the other way around, that sort of thing.
Yeah, I love that. I feel similar to like the wine houses, like the wine bars in like Italy, where like you just have like these regulars where like that's where the community goes. Right. Like that's just like, I feel like America's great for a lot of reasons, but I also feel like we fucked up a lot of shit for many different reasons.
Right. No, of course.
And so I think we can get back to our roots, like our ancestral roots when it comes to the like hospitality industry. So where does it make sense to start sharing your story?
Well, I was in the health and fitness industry for my whole adult life. So 17 years, hospitality-esque, obviously. It's, a leisure thing. You're, talking about going to a place you voluntarily go to. And I was doing that, and I would happily done that for many more years. I was working at a place that was, masquerading as a corporation, but it was really mom and pop, and you had a lot of influence. You made a lot of friends. The same regulars you get at a restaurant or a bar, you get the same regulars at a health club. The guys that work out in the morning, and then you get the night crowd, and then so on and so forth. So I was doing that and happily doing it, and it changed hands to a real corporation, publicly traded company, and had a lot less influence on the outcome of the day-to-day, where I still had the regulars that I was, technically, the manager of and their experience, and I had no influence to change anything that they were requesting because it was so much bureaucracy and, red tape, and we'll fill out a form and have somebody overview it, in New York City. You know? So I was like, this isn't what, I'm meant to do. So I hung out that with like for a year, but I was moonlighting doing this, and this was always something like I had in the back of my mind. And I used to go to a pub in Cambridge, Mass. Before my kids were born. My kids are 9 and 10 now. And it was a Liverpool supporter bar. So soccer, obviously. And I would go there, and it was great because everyone was like, it was almost being like at, in England, because they all knew the culture, and a lot of them were expats from England, and we all we're happy together and sad together.
You're drinking beer at 10
like,
o'clock in the morning.
And we're like, all right, Liverpool. And while I was doing that, I was like, well, this is great, but I, like, back to like, wanting to open a place where everyone felt they belonged. If you were a fan of another team, you did not feel like you belonged. Right. So what would happen would it fractured off, and there's other teams, Manchester United is pretty popular, and they had their own bar and so on. So I was like, well, I want a place where everyone feels like they belong, and they can come each other, give each other shit when their team wins or doesn't win, or just hate against your team because their team's doing terrible and your team's doing great and you lost to somebody that, I wanted to be around that culture. And I knew everyone, and when I was talking to these people, they were coming from such great distances because that was the only place to go, because they were like, I feel like I belong here. And I could sit down, we could talk about Liverpool history and know what we're talking about and stuff like that. But, they'd play a team, lesser than them, win 5-0, and everyone's like, yeah, this is great, and they'd leave. And I was like, well, the better game's on next. It's like, why are you guys taking off? And that's what spawned the idea. I was like, it would be great if there's a place where you could just watch any game, and I was very passionate about it, and I knew there was an underbelly where people would also just want to watch, in America especially, where we're from, I'd have to go into a bar if I didn't want to go all the way to Cambridge, and I knew the game was accessible. Like, I'd be like, hey, can you put that TV on the soccer match? And the guy's like, what channel is that? It's like, I don't even know if I have, whatever, ESPN 2. And I'm like, it's pretty popular, man. It's like, bigger than the Super Bowl would be like the Champions League final. They're like, oh, we're watching like ESPN, and they're
Yeah,
like,
the Bruins are playing
right.
tonight.
They're like, I'm like, okay, well, trust me, this is a thing, and I knew there were people out there like me,
Right.
and so that was kind of the motivating factor. I was kind of done with the health club industry, and I always wanted to pursue this, so I literally just grassroots it. I went to like learn how to open a business, like generally, like classes, like free through like the government. And
Was that what was that through? What do you mean?
Score, yeah. And I still remember this. The first time I went, it was a room full of people, and they were going around. What do you want to do? It's like, I'm opening a sewing store, and this guy's like, I'm a tax accountant, whatever. And the guy spent like basically the whole time talking everyone out of it, right? And I knew this afterwards, that this was on purpose. Who's not going to come next week? Who's not going to come? Who got shut down by that one no? Right? Like, you guys, nobody here is going to make it. All the facts and figures of like who goes out of business and percentage wise. And then I came back and it was like half the room, some new faces, and some of the guys like were there the day, the week before, and he does the same thing, and he kind of trashes everybody, and he's like, well, and I came back the next week, and I get less people. So he was like, all right, you need to start talking to some restaurant specific, people. So he links me up the next step up the ladder. So I go talk to these guys, tell them the idea. And again, they're just like, someone would have already done this already if there was a market for that. I was going to soccer. He's like, what's your experience? I'm like, absolutely none. And he's like, okay, let's think this through. And I just kept coming back. And I kept coming back and doing whatever they said. Hey, you got to start doing this, start doing that. And I would go and I'd get, the first draft of a business plan.
What year did you start this process?
2018.
Okay.
I started doing all like the moonlighting. I still had my job at the health club.
When did you open? It was 2020.
Yeah.
What was the month?
June 2020.
June 2020. What month would you approximately into 2018?
I would say early. I would say like, winter of 2018. I started, spring maybe of 2018. Started taking the classes and doing all that legwork, and then each hurdle I would hit, and someone would recommend, maybe you should do this, I would do it. It was like, first I hired a restaurant consulting firm. I believed in myself. I believed in my idea, right? And I was like, I'm not going to get the door slammed in my face because I did like an Excel, business plan, which I could have done and which I was doing when I would bring those rough drafts to like all these, how to open a business meetings. Right. The guy was like, well, you really should get this done. And I went to him, and it was more like a mentorship. And they said, I did my legwork, and I found one that was...
This guy is the guy that the score guy introduced you to.
Yeah. This was like two guys down that line,
right, cool.
And actually, ironically, he was in Dover at the time. I can't even remember his name. But I said to him, I'm like, listen, I found this company that does business plans. And I found this other company that does business plans, and they have this tiered system where they get you like to the grand opening, and they help you.
What was the name of these companies?
The first one, I can't remember that one I didn't use. But
was it Live Plan?
No.
Was it like a digital asset that helped you?
It was more like just literally like boilerplate business plan restaurant. Like they didn't do a lot of the stuff, but it was cheap, and I was using my own money at this time.
Got it.
But they said National Restaurant Consultants.
Okay.
They're out of Colorado, and what I liked about them, I spent a long time researching them, and I spoke to them on the phone. They turn you down, basically. They have such a high success rate that they turn you down if they think your idea is stupid.
Yeah.
They don't take on the project if they don't think it would work. So they took me on. I got paired up with this guy. His name was Jared. He was phenomenal and helped me every step of the way. I couldn't do it without him. Business plan, location research, all that stuff that I would have, I was kind of doing on my own, but he was like, these are the economics of the area and what is needed in that area, so on and so forth. And just like kind of like had a, again, I was paying them, but almost like a partner. He's like, we're going to get this done, and so on and so forth. So that started the snowball, and we're putting out business plans. And he would get on calls with me for financing, and got 30 no's, and then finally got like one yes.
Did they tell you what it was about your plan that they liked and they thought would have legs, like why they chose to work with you and what they thought was good about it?
They thought that I had knowledge of the underbelly, like I was saying, of like this niche market that was untapped. So it wasn't just another pizza place. It wasn't just another American. You had
a unique
fusion.
selling proposition.
Yeah, exactly. And then he saw how passionate I was about it and how much work I had done prior to. I didn't just call him up and say, "Hey, I got this idea. Do the rest for me."
Right.
I had done so much. I did like literally a calendar of the following year of every game that was going to be played on every single day for 365 days. And I was like, here's what's, because they would be like, well, what's, those games aren't on. I'm like, oh, no, they're on. They're old. There's too many on. You know what I mean? And so I did all that, and they were like, that was what they saw. That I was like, again, I wasn't taking no for an answer because I was getting it at every turn. You know?
And I love what this guy, this score guy, was doing too. And I kind of joke. I'm like, my mission with this podcast is to change the world through inspiring, empowering, and transforming the industry. But it's also to talk you out of it.
Yeah.
And like when I first started this podcast, it was like, I'm gonna inspire people. It's gonna be so motivating.
Right.
We're gonna talk about all the success that these people that in the public eye are successful, but when you start talking to them, you start pulling back the layers on their life, and they're like, look, like I have like a 4.7 like Google review, but like every day is a grind. Like I'm paying my bills, I'm making money, but like this is hard. And that's like the reality of it. There are some people that eventually are able to remove themselves and they own the business, but I feel like something like what you're trying to do, where you like your soul is in this.
Yes.
And I think that's kind of what they saw too, is like people, when you're getting into a restaurant or you're building something, it's the culture that will make it. And the culture isn't just the culture of you and your staff. It's the culture of all the things that you love about a place that you're putting into this. And like your people will find you. But you have to have some kind of desire, some kind of undertow thing going on there that is pushing you. You have to be borderline insane about whatever that thing is. And
I was always like, I would be here as a guest if this was open somewhere else. So I was like, might as well own it while I'm at it. It's like I was looking for this place, so I just decided to like, build it. That was kind of how my motivational factor was like, I don't want to drive to Cambridge all the time. I want to watch soccer every day, and I want to be around people that are intelligent and like that kind of culture. Because it's not just watching a soccer match. You're hearing stories behind why they like that. Because it's not like, hey, the Red Sox are on and we're from Boston. That's easy. This is like, oh, why do you like Liverpool? Like I told you in the beginning, it's my grandmother was from there. My grandfather loved soccer. Everything I got when I was a kid was, a calendar, a bag, a scarf, a jersey, every, Christmas, birthday, whatever, And
it's part of the culture.
Exactly. And it was like, then you find someone else, and you're like, well, why do you like it? Well, I'm from there. And it's like, oh, my dad, served in, the war, and he was always stationed in England and stuff like that. So that was like also part of it. It's like, you hear those stories and they're cool. It's like, you want to be like, you want to hear that stuff and go, oh, this guy really likes it.
Right. Well, what I like about your story so far is that you swallowed your pride and you went and you got help and you surrounded yourself with people who know more than you do. And it sounds like what I like about this guy, again, the score thing, is what he did is he helped you get to the next layer. So like he kind of weeded out the noise, and the people that keep showing up, okay, like I'm willing to put my energy into you because
you're putting in the energy.
You're putting in the energy. You're putting in the work. It's that's really what I'm trying to do with the podcast too, is like, I don't pretend to be the guy with all the answers, but I know a lot of people. So like, I'm trying to like connect those people that I've discovered through word of mouth. You're sharing, what was the name of this company again?
The National Restaurant Consultants.
National Restaurant Consultants. And that was worth it for you.
Oh my God.
How much money did you spend, if you know what I mean?
That was $4,500. $4,500. And what I did was, so that was what their package was, the business plan all the way up to the grand opening. He helped me negotiate POS systems with their power. Like he's like, listen, I put these in all these places. For me, like it paid for itself immediately, because it was like, oh, if I got a dish machine lease on my own as a noob, they were like, let's take this guy to the cleaners. Like, here's the Cadillac that you need to have. It's like the George Jetson one. And he was like, no, it's like, this is the basic thing. This is not the volume he's going to do. And it's like, you're saving this much money. Then he gets me my POS system, save me this much money. And just did those things that like, in order, the steps that I needed, where I would have been like, let's buy the chairs. And he's like, well, we don't need to buy the chairs yet. Let's sand the floors, like that sort of thing.
So what POS did he tell you to go with?
I ended up going with, it's changed names, but it's Lightspeed.
Lightspeed. Why was that the one that he told you? This is 2020?
This is 2020. And he's like, for the amount of like everyone's using Toast and like, where you're getting these like systems that you can kind of like upgrade to like multi-location, multi-floor like sort of things. He's like, listen, you want to make the most basic user friendly, because he's like, you're going in green. He's like, you want to be able to know how to use it, and you want to be able to know how to train somebody how to use it. And this was like so like, at the time, like I got it right away. I was able to transfer that onto my original general manager. She was able to train her staff. It was so like, I mean, I demoed a couple, and they're kind of user-friendly interface-wise, but like the reporting, and it was more like once he got me to the grand opening, he was still digging into my reports and like helping me out and be like, this is, backwards, or this is like, upside down. It was easy to transfer that information. So that's why I kind of went with that, just like a gut feeling, sort of thing. Like I didn't know any better.
Right. So he said it was he was comparing it to toast. And I think what you said was that you don't need all those added features when you're just getting started. Just start simple.
Yeah, it was more like, you could see like why like toast was the most popular. It was like, the interface was very, friendly, and but again, it was more geared towards, inventory recording and stuff like that. He's like, listen, you can move to this at any point. Let's start with this, which is just like your POS system. We're going to do, our own inventory tracking and stuff like that. So there was multiple ones that, were in the, in the space, but I was like, ended up going with that one because it was the most like, adaptable to me.
So it sounds like the rationality was just keeping your operational expense low. They probably have really good terms in terms of like getting in and getting out without, doing like a 5-year lease or
it was basically like, hey, we use you.
commitment.
I'm going to recommend you and all the other
Contract,
national restaurant consultant kind of, projects, which they had many. So I think it was more like he wasn't pushing me towards it, but it was like it behooved me to do it. As far as like, again, let's get open, let's start making money before we start, buying, the top of the line, everything.
Right.
Which kind of speaks to even like the location I selected.
Right.
Because it was like going in to ask for a loan, a blank space, you're getting all brand new equipment, which is great and lovely, but that just adds to the ask. And again, with no experience in the business plan being
keep your
a soccer
liabilities
bar.
low.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, the biggest reason why places fail is because they're undercapitalized. So if you have any control in the early days to keep your liabilities as low as possible, it seems like good advice. What else do they teach you?
He was more like, driven to like, establish, before you even open the doors, establish like an identity, like get people excited. It's like, you're coming to town. He goes, I don't care if you're a Domino's. Be like, the first 150 customer, whatever it was. Like he's opened a bunch of, places, and sometimes it's, this little dive taco stands, but he's like, get people excited that you're going to be there. So I was already excited. He's like, just share that with everybody. So I was very like on, social media, just showing like the process of, hey, we're coming, show them the floor plan, show them just one scarf, show them the bare, like me taking apart this place, what it was before to what it is now. And I had a following of people like waiting, when is it coming? When is it coming? And then people knocking on the door, I wanted to be like a part of it. And so that was something that like, it is kind of putting yourself out there. What if it fails before I even start, sort of thing. But I was like so passionate about it. He's like, that's what you need to share with people. Like that's what needs to be come across, like that you're coming and you need to be a part of this.
So you're from Boston, Newburyport. Were you from Newburyport?
Originally, I'm from Methuen, which is about 30 minutes south of Newburyport. But I've been in Newburyport since 2012.
2012.
Yeah.
Why Dover? Were you worried that this might be too far from your home network?
Well, number one, this location and this business model has to happen in New Hampshire. You can't drink in the morning in Massachusetts on Sunday. The games in England are in the morning because of the time zone difference. When I used to go to the Phoenix Landing in Cambridge, Liverpool would play at like 9 o'clock on a Sunday. You're like, I'm driving all the way down there to like drink coffee and have eggs and bacon, which is fine, but you'd be around the game, and ironically they'd start pouring like Guinness, like 10:30, and they'd be like, all right, if we get raided, everyone dump them on the floor, because you can't drink till 11. So in order to have your margins, and I'm not a pancakes and sausage, churn that table over in 35 minutes, bottomless coffee kind of place.
Yeah, we're here for the game.
We're here for 2 hours.
Yeah.
And we're here to, even maybe 2.5. That table's not turning over. You need to, like, it's a breakfast bar. Right. In all, aspects. Because you're like, if that table's going to be there for a while, you can't make $17.31, and the waitress gets, $3 a table because she needs to turn it over 20 times before noon.
Right.
So I had to have that margin. So that's why. So I started like anybody else. Like I'm from Newburyport, this twin sister of Portsmouth. I went there and looked at every Portsmouth location I possibly could. Again, square peg round hole. Like this is a retail spot. Can I put in, a Bunsen burner and like a crock pot or whatever? But the places are, this big. And the rent is this big. Same thing with Newburyport.
Right.
And it was a little bit of heartlessness there. There was like, yeah, take that place. You're going to be gone in 6 months. The next guy will be knocking on the door.
Yeah, we've seen this before
100 times.
Yeah.
And again, I've seen it in Newburyport as well. And I looked in Exeter. I looked in Manchester. I wanted a walkable downtown. This place was up and coming. I could see it. It has the
right next to the train station.
Exactly. So like this is a destination point,
Yeah.
so I can advertise in Boston technically.
Right.
And someone jumps on the train and they're here and they can drive home and use public transport. Had its own parking at the time. It was much better than it is now, but it was just like the first place I saw, and I was like, well, I can't be an asshole by the first place I see. So I started looking around, and every time I would go back, I'd be like, well, it's not like that. It's not like that. And then I got to the point where I was like, forget it. I just got to make this guy an offer. And I did. It was accepted. And about maybe 3 weeks later, he got cold feet and he backed out.
Oh, man.
Yeah. So I was like, back to square one. I went back to Portsmouth.
Well, this is in the middle of the pandemic, too.
No, this is prior.
Oh, prior.
Prior.
So when did you make the first offer?
It was probably in, October of 19.
Okay.
And had a deal. He backed out. I think he I had a conversation with him like this, kind of closed doors, obviously. And I think he kind of got more inspired, and he was like, I'm going to, beef this place up, And so I was like downtrodden. I was like, I start square one looking for another location, again, back to Portsmouth. And then maybe like 2 weeks later, he came back to me. He's like, listen, I had it appraised. It's a little bit more money. And I was like, well, that's not a deal breaker. Had it appraised myself, said, is it worth this? And came to an agreement. And then we closed in December of 2019. And my business plan was to flip it in 90 days, get it open in March. And then everyone knows what happened there.
Yeah.
I actually was like the happiest person in the restaurant industry because I wasn't ready.
Right.
I wanted it to look like this, like it does now. And I had, paint, saws, everything, because I was doing everything myself because my loan ask was like, thank God I didn't get the loan I was asking for because I would have had it all done, contracted out, and was going to be open in March. But they kept saying, no, not to that much money. So I had to cut out a bunch of stuff and do it myself.
Right. So it forced you to get scrappy.
Yeah. So I had to do that and slowed me down. So I was like, all right, good. Yeah, no one can go to restaurants. I can take my time.
Right.
And then I started running out of money. And I was like, all right, I got to get this thing open. So I'm watching the governor every day. And he goes, the first thing was you could eat outside. And I didn't do this to go sit outside, by the train station.
Right.
So I was like, all right, we'll just hold out, keep doing the renovations, keep making it look the way I want it to look. And
so were you burning through your SBA, or was that how you got the money through SBA?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
I was like, my opening capital. I
Right.
was using all that.
And when did you get approved for that loan?
That was December. Yeah, December of 19.
Yeah, so just before.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I wouldn't have got anything.
Right.
So closed on it, started renovating it, and
what was it appraised for, if you don't mind me asking that question?
it was $140,000.
Okay.
So it was mostly fixtures, furniture, and equipment.
That's a pretty good deal.
Yeah, if it was trying to buy this place to turn into John's Pizza, it wouldn't have happened. Like he was kind of like going down, So I think he was just like owning a job and kind of wanted to get out. And again, appraised all the equipment, and I needed a second generation spot. I needed all the equipment in place. Everything was depreciated beyond any value. I was just hoping that all the Band-Aids didn't fall off at the same time.
Right.
So that's, they didn't, but they all fell off. I'll tell you that.
Right.
So they've all been renovated to the point over like use, and now I know exactly when this was renovated and repaired. But,
got it.
Yeah.
What up, Unstoppable restaurant owners and operators? We have to interrupt today's video to let you know that Restaurant Unstoppable and Restaurant Systems Pro, we're taking our relationship to the next level. Beginning in July of 2024, Fred Langley, CEO of Restaurant Systems Pro, is making himself available once a week in Restaurant Unstoppable Network to answer all of your restaurant systems questions, whether it's be profit margins. He will look at your P&L. Bring your P&L. He will take a look at that. He will dissect it. He will help you find your profit, whether that be through budgeting, inventory management, costing recipe cards, labor, checklists, you name it. He is a master of restaurant systems, and he's making himself available to you. Fred Langley and Restaurant Systems Pro started as a consulting firm, and for over 16 years, they've been helping their clients increase their profit by 10% or more. What are you waiting for? Click the link below to join our Facebook group, Restaurant Unstoppable Network.
So what was the total amount you thought you would need to get open? Not just to cover like the cost, $140,000, but what did you need to the...
Originally, my ask was like $750,000.
Okay.
Yeah, and I had everything in here. Like that was, again, to get open quickly, have it professionally done, like contracted out. And I had a bunch of like, pie in the sky ideas. I had, how there's a golf simulator? I had a soccer simulator. where you could like kick penalty kicks stationed over there. So that was like the first thing to go. And then as I paired back how much like all the bids I got to like do the plumbing, electrical, construction on, there was no bar, there was no facade, it's all brick. So I couldn't hang like TVs where I wanted to. I had all that stuff priced in, so I had to start knocking that back to the point where I got the loan. It ended up being $300,000.
Okay, so what did you have to do? So was that, I I was here once, I think.
Yeah.
When I lived here,
you wouldn't even recognize what like.
And I don't remember it that much, and there's probably why they're not open.
Well, it was like he had some of the things like, I mean, he was in business for 25 years. Who am I to say? You know what I mean? He had like the middle school pizza contract for a while that kind of got him by. He was like doing gluten free before anybody thought that was cool.
Yeah.
But it just got to the point where like everybody was. When locals would come in, they're like, "Oh, what was this?" And then they tell them, they're like, "Oh yeah, I used to come here when I was a kid." And he had like a pizza buffet on Friday nights. And,
yeah.
But it was like the pleather booths, and like he had like his dad was a pilot. He had a big plane, a biplane hanging from the ceiling. Yeah. But I had to do everything. Like there was no like bar area; it was just tables, and like he had like one tube TV that he like hooked up to the wall. He added taps in that were unusable, like for me. So yeah, I got it. And one of my pet peeves is, if a restaurant, and especially in like Newburyport, for example, like this site that like a place goes out of business, someone goes in there the next day, it's just like, all right, it was Eric's, now it's John's. You're like, but you didn't change anything.
Right.
And like, what difference does it make? Like, change it for me. Like, give it an effort. And so I was like, I'm not going to just walk in this door and be like, now it's the June Cork Pub, and it looks like Weeksy's Pizza.
So the floors are the same, right?
Yeah, I sanded them and stained those.
Floors are the same.
Yep.
You got rid of the booths. You added high top tables all around.
Yep.
You added flat screen TVs all over the place.
Yep.
Was the bar there?
No, added the bar.
So you added the bar.
Yep, added the facade around to hang some more TVs.
Yep.
Stained every wall. Every wall was like olive green. There's like one remnant like in the far.
When you say walls, you're talking about the ones that aren't brick. Gotcha.
Yeah, those were all like teal olive color. Stained them all to make dark pub feel.
Yeah.
And then a lot of this stuff was like either donated by friends, like flags and jerseys. A lot of the stuff was mine. And then right in the beginning, I got a bunch of people just being like, "Hey, I love this place. I want to donate this. I want like my wife won't let me hang it in the house. I'll hang it here. So when I come in, I can be like, yeah, that was mine." And
cool.
I was like,
but you're also building community around the people that want to be able to call this their bar.
Exactly. Exactly. And I was happy to do it. And it was like, and again, there's a story behind everything that they got. Hey, I was in, Rome, and I got this jersey. I just thought it was cool. Everyone was wearing it. I have no idea what it is. I'm like, this is a cool jersey. And I'd hang it up for them. And
that's cool.
They come in and they're like, yeah, that's mine.
Yeah.
So
I love that. So how are you prioritizing where to spend this money you were able to get your hands on?
NRC, the National Restaurant Consultants, basically.
So you said, this is what I got. And they're like, all right, well, this is the most important thing you spend money. What was, can you remember the order at which they were saying like this, absolutely don't skimp on these things?
Man, that's a good question. I don't remember how the order broke down. It was more getting, it was rehabbing the place. So it was really just like money was spent on like literally me going to Home Depot 3 times a day, doing all that stuff. And I had a bunch of friends help me. And ironically, when I think about like, say if I was doing this right now, I wouldn't have the help. I had the help because it was the pandemic. Like my friends weren't working. They weren't going anywhere. They were like, if they were working, they were working from home, obviously, like everybody else. They came in here and helped me like to the nth degree. They were like, what can we do? We're figuring out how to do plumbing on our own on the YouTube. You know what I mean? That sort of thing. So I think the priority was, just get this place to how I want it to look, and then the other, I had flown out my rep from NRC. He was from Arizona. He came out and he like kind of like banged the phones on like, again, the POS system. He started talking to, employees. Again, we were trying to get open at the time for March. So I was doing this in like January and February, trying to flip this place as fast as possible. So we interviewed, I had a general manager in mind. She was coming along with me from another place, but I didn't know like what to ask a chef in a chef interview, like how to do a stage and like make them like, hey, let's put them under the gun and say like, make us something. He was hiring food vendors and saying, again, he was from Arizona. He's not from the Northeast. He's like, all right, let's see what prices are like here. I know what's fair. I know what's not. So he was kind of handling that. So again, he was like, all right, I'll take care of this. You handle like the.
This is all for $4,500.
No, then the next step up, like that was the business plan.
Okay.
The next step up was, I think it ended up being like 18,000.
Okay, that sounds more like it.
Yeah, it was like 18 grand at the end of it, maybe even a little bit more. Because I know what I did. I gave them another, like I added a tier to their like business, because I was like, what would it cost for you to stick around for a year, right? And just help me for a year. And they're like, oh, they put a price to it, and I was like, yeah, deal. And in retrospect, I didn't need it, and I actually ended up voiding half of it. Like I was just doing.
It's always good to have an exit strategy, or with like 3 months notice.
Yeah, they were like, they cut out like half of it. They were like, at 6 months, we were just repeating. He's like, yep, these numbers are standard. These numbers are standard. Yep, you're looking good. Okay, let's focus on this. And it was like that over and over again. He's like, I can't even take your money anymore, dude. He's like,
so help with the POS. They help you prioritize your budget.
Yep.
When they came on, what were the key systems? You mentioned hiring, knowing like the costing.
Yep.
Knowing how to source and getting an idea.
Yep.
What were the systems they built for you? Like the core, like profitable systems.
yeah. So essentially, he was like,
I should say
okay,
profitability systems.
yeah. So essentially, he was like, all right, this is what it like. Again, I wasn't opening another location. We weren't going off of any prior profit and loss statements. He was like, okay, this is how much money you're going to have to spend on this menu. So it was like menu design right in the beginning, and it was like, this is the cocktail, beer, and food program that you're going to follow. And going from that, this is how much this is going to cost to operate. This is the prices that we need to instill. This is the number of table turns we're going to need to have. This is the number of table seating, the seating plan, how many
Right.
tables you're going to need to. So essentially what they did was basically say, when you're open on day one, this is how, these days are going to have to run for you to make a profit. So really what he did was
Give you some benchmarks, some
yeah,
targets.
Yeah, exactly. So when I looked at something, I was like, all right, oh my God, is this a bad Tuesday? And he's like, well, it's a standard Tuesday. We don't know what, I had no year over year
Right.
month. I had to go literally hour over hour, in
Right.
the beginning.
So I'm curious, when he said, when he told you what the menu was going to cost, was he talking strictly cost of goods or the costs to get the things you would need to develop? Like, what do you mean?
No,
by
yeah,
that?
it was cost of goods, and it was also labor.
Got it.
It was the total, cost of goods plus labor.
And you're using a turnkey kitchen, so you didn't buy any more equipment. You used what was on hand.
It was a few things I had to buy that weren't and what I was able to do was and it's something that I would have never have thought. It was a pizza place. I had a big dough sheeter. I had a massive. He did his own dough, so I had a big mixer. I was able to trade a lot of that stuff for some small wares and some stuff that he's like, you need to have. What didn't we have? A convection oven or
I feel
something
like
that.
you did open at a time where you got the space in December.
Yeah.
You weren't open. What was your goal to open?
March 2020.
So everything closes.
Yep.
Was there a surplus of restaurant supplies that you could get your hands on?
I don't know about that because again, when I was going to trade, I traded with Alternative Sales. They're out of Kingston.
That's where I get my kitchen.
Yeah.
My home kitchen supplies.
Yeah. Alternative Sales. Yeah. So that's where I've always gone and had established an account, and there was a few things that we don't need that. But again, when I was doing that, the restaurant industry wasn't shut down. You know what I mean? So I didn't really start. When I was doing all this, it was the intention to open in March. No one knew what was coming down the pike. Everything was like, okay, COVID. Some people wear masks, some people don't. You can still go in every store. You still
Right.
go to every restaurant. And then when they shut everything down, I had already established all the stuff that I needed, kitchen-wise. It was kind of the first thing we did.
Yeah, because that's right. You probably could have gotten a deal if you waited. But who would have known, right?
Exactly. I couldn't have known, and I was like, again, in this part of the timeline, I was full bore every second of every day. I was like, let's get this open.
So why alternative sales? And that's your kitchenware. That's your hardware, your utensils, your kitchen.
I called
hardwares.
a few places. There was a couple places down the street here, and it was like these guys gave me the best offer on the stuff that I was offering. Came to pick it up. They was like, and then I was like, all right, this is a one-stop shop kind of place.
How were they to work with?
They were awesome.
Yeah.
They were awesome. They still are. You go in there, it's unassuming, but they'll call you when stuff's in. They'll order stuff for you. It doesn't take years. They'll keep good records of what if you're. When's the last time I bought these plates? And you don't have the receipt for that anymore, and you're like, it looks like this, and they're like, they don't even make them anymore, but they're
Right.
like, this is something similar. They're awesome to work with.
Nice. So was there any overlap with alternative sales? Knowing what you know now, could you have gotten some of that support from them that maybe the consultants were offering?
Not really. I think just the fact that I didn't know what I needed because, again, it wasn't
You
like...
don't know what you don't know.
Yeah, and I was like, all right, if we're an Italian place, you need something different than if you're a bakery. You know what I
Right.
mean? So it's like, all right, what do we need for this menu? So it was kind of like every step had to happen first. And like, all right, it was a pizza place. What can we use from there? He had a massive pizza oven in there, dual pizza oven. It was bigger than the tank. And he's like, we're not using this.
Yeah.
But it's using a ton of energy. So it's
Right.
like, what are we going to do? What can we do here? Can we throw like, casseroles and shepherd's pie through it and like, glaze these over? And it's like, no. It's like, you don't need this.
Yeah, it's too much.
Yeah, and it's taking up a ton of floor space
Right.
for movability. So those things, like, I think like the way I did it, I wouldn't change the process because it was like, all right, this is what we're gonna offer. These are like, we need fish and chips, we need bangers and mash, we need shepherd's pie. These are the menu items that are staples. But we're also in America, so we need burgers, we need
Right.
cheese, fries, we need wings.
Right.
Chicken tenders, stuff like that. We can't just alienate everybody and be like, oh, it's only haggis and
Right.
So it was like we had to like take that menu, Americanize it. But if you're gonna call yourself a British pub, you got to do these things right. And what do we need to execute that? What kind of again, plating, smallwares,
So back to the question about the systems. What like inventory you mentioned? Like he helped you with the POS system, inventory system, costing,
Yep.
purchasing.
Yep.
What about labor management?
Yep. So I had a girl that I was bringing with me as the general manager. Basically said, okay, these are the hours we're open. This is when we expect things. Like this is when it's going to be busy. Obviously before you start, everyone's like, every night's going to be busy. We're going to be slammed and reservations for 6 months out.
Right.
And now I was like, all right, these are the games that are going to are important. That have like a massive audience and these are the hours we need covered. But when I started, I hired too many people. It was like I had bus boys, I had hosts. Way too many.
Was that based off the what you were advised to do?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. It was like, you're right, you got to hire, and it was also like, my general manager's like, I worked in restaurants. I'm taking these people's word for it, obviously,
Yeah.
because I'm like, who am I to like? No, we
Right.
don't. We get away with that. We don't need this. And I mean, these are not high wage employees. It wasn't like getting a sous chef and a second in command and like
Right.
paying Boston prices for gourmet Michelin star rated chefs. But it was like I had 2 bus boys. I had 2 hosts. I had servers on at 7 a.m, which like the bartender can handle. So like now I know what I need to operate, even on the busiest day of the year,
Right.
Sort of thing. So
Well,
yeah, but
time
he was
tells
like,
that stuff.
he's kind of like the restaurant guy's like, this is what you need. You got to have this. Every restaurant has it. And it's like, we didn't know what we needed. We did research in the area.
The truth too is like what people needed and what has been normal is no longer normal as I think we go into the future. There's like we're in this state of change right now where we're like, listen, the 1905 business model
Right.
isn't working anymore.
Right.
Like, what does the future of restaurants look like, and how can we break the mold to think of different ways to monetize a
Right.
hospitality business?
Well,
you
they're
know?
voting on it in Massachusetts today. Like
I know.
it, like
We'll
crazy.
find out how that goes.
Yeah.
I cannot wait for this election to be over.
Oh,
I'm
me
just
too.
So over it. Every 4 years, the ads. Man.
Absolutely.
Ugh,
And it's
my
like,
God.
especially here, and a funny story about like to add the British element to it. When the Queen died, there was a coronation for the King, right? I had a local paper call me, and she's like, "What are you doing?" Expecting me to be like pomp and circumstance and rolling out, everyone's getting dressed up, and I was like, nothing. And she's like, what? She was floored that I was doing nothing. She's like, I thought you were a British pub. Do I have the right number? And I was like, we don't enter politics in any shape or form, right? I go, I have people that are expats from, Britain. They don't like the royal family. So I'm
Right.
going to come up and put a like flag down and be like, yeah, let's celebrate this.
Right.
I don't know anyone's backstory, so we don't get involved at all.
Right.
And she was like, she thought I had a layup story. Like, she's like, this one writes itself. She's like, can I talk to anybody? I don't know. I'm not going to give that, I don't want to leave voice to like one side or the other, or just let people have like, this is not a place for that, that
Right.
sort of thing.
Right.
And I want everyone to feel comfortable. That's where it goes back to. And it's like, you think like, oh, this must be a big deal there. I'm like, absolutely not.
Right. So, in terms of like your personal challenges in the early days before opening, I mean, reflecting back, what were the things that were specifically hard for you?
Oh man, just like the staff management. I had such a good staff in the beginning, like the best. And people were like, "Oh, what's the hardest thing? Is it the staffing?" And I'm like, "What are you talking about?" I'm like, "How could everyone have just this?" It was amazing. Like,
What was the struggle?
it was after that started to crumble. Like when they were like got their big boy jobs, or they're like, hey man, I'm moving on. I graduated from college.
Right.
It happened kind of all at once. I lost like 5 of like my staple people all at the same time, and replacing them, I was like, oh my god, this isn't common. Like to have these good people. Like, you lose one good full timer, you try to replace them with 3 part timers. What are the odds on all 3 of them being great?
Right. How'd that make you feel?
It was so hard. So hard. It still is. It's the hardest part. When people, I laugh at myself for laughing at people saying, oh, is it the hardest part? And I'm like, no, it's not that. It's like spending money or whatever, or like, knowing where to spend money. It is the absolute hardest thing. It's like you think you're getting one thing, you get something else, or you get something that you think is phenomenal, it's going to last forever, and you're like, they leave, and you're like, I cannot replace these people.
Right.
It was, and then just, I'm very like hands off. I'm very like, I don't micromanage. I want, people that want to be here. I want adults. Even an adult could be an 18-year-old kid who's like mature, and you could have a kid who's like 56 and acts like an a-hole, and you're like, I have to manage this guy, and you're like, that's the part that's like, to this day, is the hardest part of like, and it like you lose sleep at night, just having like the hours filled, but having the right people to deal with your guests. You're putting yourself like out there, and having those people represent you and the name on the side of the building. And for me, it's the family name.
Right.
So it's like, that's the hardest part by far.
So reflecting back at that, was there something that you think you didn't do that you could have done to overcome that challenge better?
The only thing I could have done, honestly, is do it all myself. And I learned very early on, don't do that. I learned that from when I was managing in the health club industry, because I used to manage 4 at a time, and they were like large health clubs. And it's like, I couldn't do I can only be in one place at one time, and allowing people to do their job, expecting, having expectations, setting those expectations to do the job, and trusting them to do it is where I like came from. So I was doing that in this industry, and they're fewer and far between.
Right. So when you first you said when you opened, like, you had gangbusters, like you were able to get this great team, and then they moved on. They graduated college. You're in a college town right next door. You're in Dover, but next door is Durham, and a lot of people
UNH.
They stay in Dover because it's a lot more affordable to live here, and they just do the 15-minute drive to Durham.
The one exit over. Yeah.
So you get a lot of young people looking for work, but they move on eventually. So why weren't you able to? What changed here that you weren't able to find people to continue to fill into their the next class? Of
I know
workers?
100%. And it wasn't evident to me in the beginning, but it was the time I had to get the first set of people.
So you had time to
vet them and want them around, because some of them helped me open too. I had young girls in here that were freshmen in college, and they were in here helping in the bathroom and painting and moving stuff around. I could tell they were bought in.
Yeah.
Then it was all right, well, I got to have somebody here Saturday. Next guy that walks in the door, he's hired. You know what I mean?
Right.
And you're like, yeah, he seemed great. He showed up on time. Showed up at all at this point.
Right.
And you're like, all right, can you do it? Where'd you used to work? And there was no, I'm not calling references. I don't have time for that. It was the next guy that came in the door was the next guy. And you're like, that's not the guy.
Right.
And it's or they were the guy for 2 weeks. Then you're True Colors came out, and you're like, all right, now it's 2 weeks down the road. I got to start over again.
Right. And I think some of the big lessons I've learned relative to hiring is always be hiring.
That's what I've learned as well.
Yeah. It's if you have somebody walk through the door and they are an 8 out of 10 in terms of all the things, or a 9 out of 9.
Yep. Find a spot for them.
Rarely do you get a 10 out of 10, right? But you can coach up.
Yep.
But if they show potential, you're hired, we'll figure it out.
Yep.
Because if you wait a month, you're gonna need that person.
Absolutely, and they're gonna be gone. And it's I always have, if someone comes in and they say, oh, you guys hiring? Always
hiring. That's a big lesson. And then fire fast, hire slow.
Yep.
So
if you can, man, and that's why you always want to be looking. So you have that
constantly feeding the funnel.
Yeah, I'll interview oh yeah, we do a couple of intervies and make sure he's going to fit well with the team. I'll have some not even a manager, just somebody that you're going to be working with. Hey, you just chat with her, give her an idea. I'm obviously going to sell her on it, and be that place is the greatest thing of all time. You should come in and join our team. But to have the other people hey, how's it on Saturday night? What's it like on I go, again, being a breakfast bar, I'm busy in the morning. It's that's a unique situation for a waitress, or a bartender. They're holy shit.
So what's it like now? Are you doing anything differently now? Are you still struggling with that?
So I'm struggling nonstop. Yeah. I don't think there's anything I can do.
Yeah, you're not alone.
Yeah.
It's a common felt pain. So what next in terms of challenges for you?
Just, I mean, to be honest with you, it's like every day is you wake up and it's like, let's try to make money today, or like let's stay open today. You know, that's how I treat it. I don't like I don't rest on my laurels or anything. I just go, hey, you know, this could all go sideways. So if you had a good day yesterday, great. Let's have another one today. If you don't have a great one, well, what can we do differently? You know, I'm a very, very big stats guy. You know, I almost manage to adjust to the numbers. You know, and I don't get emotional about it. I'm not married to anything on the shelves. I'm not married to anything on the menu. If somebody has an idea, do it. But if there's no ROI, it's gone. And I tell them, don't feel bad if you're like the drink we named after you gets pulled off the menu. You know, it's like itself.
How are you tracking these numbers? What tools do you have to be able to track these numbers?
I do a lot of things very, very old school. Like, that's just the way I learned. It was like I've been doing stats for, like, you know, again, the health club I was doing. I was a regional sales manager. I was selling memberships, cancellations, stuff like that. Like, literally, I go into the system. I do stuff by hand. I want to see it that way. People are like, oh, let me see your P&L. I have a bookkeeper to do that because I don't see the numbers that way. I literally use my bank account. I use my sales tracking in my POS. I track sales by the day. I track by the item. I track, labor costs versus sales. And, I break them down really, really finite, obviously the back of the house, employees make more than the front of the house employees because they're relying on tips. Right. So when you put it all together, you're like, okay, are we staying in that number, like 30%, like 25, 30%? Yeah, we are. But like the back of the house is like 45 and the front of the house is like 15, and then they're like, oh, okay. Well, can we tweak the back of the house a little bit to get that 2% margin that makes or breaks you?
Right.
So I kind of just spend like my days literally pouring over the numbers, and like, I don't like wait till I go, oh, there's a problem. Halfway through the month, let's do a forecast for the rest of the month. I'm like, no. What was last year? What was this year? What was yesterday?
Right. What do they say? What gets measured gets minded.
Exactly.
And if you're constantly looking at the numbers and you have your thumb on the pulse, you know how you start. When you start, like, how do you know whether or not what you're doing is working unless you're tracking it?
Exactly.
And I'll track it.
I'll do weather-based stats. Oh, why was it a bad Tuesday? Like just the other day, I was talking to some of the regulars, and I'm like, what the hell was last October? Blah blah blah. Right? And I'm like, I had closed for a couple of days. We gave a couple of staff, in service days, and we were off. And I was like, why are these numbers like so high? And it was the Rugby World Cup, and I had, never remembered that. But I looked back at my notes. Oh yeah, the Rugby World Cup. There's no Rugby World Cup this October, so the numbers. I'm like, what the hell was going on Friday, October 28th, 2023? And it was like, I'm looking it up online. I'm like,
but now you can look to like future events. Like this was big.
What
for
we
us.
expect, yeah.
And like, what about like marketing? Because you said you put all these things in the calendar. So like, what is your approach to marketing and getting butts in seats? Because like you have to capitalize on these special events.
Absolutely. So it's funny. Like at first, I was like, everything I did was like soccer, rugby, European sports. I'm unique, right? I would, I go, the Red Sox, Bruins, Patriots, they'll speak for themselves. You don't need to do that. I need to get this market, right? And then I was like, I have that market. I need people that just want to go out to eat.
Right.
They want to have fish and chips and be in like a cool environment. So I started to do, focus on, I had photos done, I had videos done, I had some, social media teams come in, and they would, take cool, video of just a busy day. But I had that crowd, so I was like, all right, I need to focus on the food. The food's kick-ass, and, I'm getting good reviews, like you said earlier, and it's like, I need more people to know about this, because the number one thing, and it's my own fault, and, I'm sure every, restaurant owner thinks this too, it's like, I hate when someone comes in and goes, I didn't even know you guys were here.
Right.
I'm like, obviously I'm doing a kick-ass job of marketing. You don't know I'm here. I've been here 5 years. Especially when it's a soccer person.
Right.
And I'm like suicidal at that point. I'm like, how? What else can I do to make, how do you not know about this by now? Because I'm like, when I was doing it, I was like, where are the soccer bars?
Right.
This is when social media just started. And I was like, finally, we were watching Liverpool games on a Russian feed where it was actually going backwards. It was like, actually in real life, they're going left to right. And it's like, the feed is kind of out.
I was curious about that because I feel like places like this do really well. They tend to do well where there's a high concentration of people, so that there's more potential for niche market, right? So you might in the Boston area, how many people live in the Boston area? Like a couple million?
Exactly.
I don't know. But when you get up to we're not quite southern New Hampshire.
I would say, and we're not seacoast, and it's
you're
I'm still in New Hampshire,
You're still in the southern half of New Hampshire. There's still density here, but not Boston density.
Right.
So is there going to be enough of a market of super soccer fans
Right.
up in
That's
Dover.
every bank. Every
Right.
bank was like, what is going to draw this? And I'm like, I had to promote it as a destination point because it is. It is like if you want to watch it around like-minded people, you're not going to, I'm not going to disparage any name in a restaurant, but you're not going to go to the chain restaurant and be
Right.
like, hey, I'm having a great time at, Applebee's. I want to be around somebody that's like this. Yes, you can watch some of these games. I have every streaming service known to man. That's what these are. They're like held hostage on these streaming services.
What in terms of like legalities? What do you have to face with the streaming services?
Nothing now.
Why?
In the beginning, there's a cap on the streams.
Okay.
So essentially, like that can only get so many. But in the beginning, honestly, I growing pains like crazy. I was like, all right, I'm just going to put all these games. I have 11 TVs. I'm going to put all 11 peacocks on, and I got to a point where it's like, oh, you can't do that. They literally had a service. NBC Sports had a service called Pub Pass, and you had to buy Pub Pass to get permission to watch these, matches. Now that as I pay my service fees, I pay $9.99 for whatever Paramount or Apple TV, and I'm just beholden to the cap they give you for the amount of streams you can do at one time. Most of them are 3.
Is that general Paramount caps, or is that caps? Like, do they know that you're?
No, it's not like the old school pay-per-view days where you're like paying by the seat and stuff like that. No, as long as I pay that and I can put on 3 streaming services. So like today I'm going to juggle like 5 games all on at the same time. And I'll have, Eric wants to watch, Juventus. Derek wants to watch Man City. John wants to watch Liverpool. I know where they want to sit. I'm like, all right, your TV is going to have that game on, and I juggle that stuff.
Yeah.
And it's a lot, but that's like kind of my job here. I was like, again, when I'm hosting the party, I was like, you coming over to watch the game? Well, you're going to watch a different game than one of the other guests at the party.
How do you recreate that, say, for example, if you ever want to open a second one of these?
You'd have to, I do it. It can be done by anybody. It has to be taught. And it's like what I call active content management. I hated, and I still do, when I go to any other place and there's a thing that's on that should be on the TV. If you're calling yourself X, right? If you're saying like you're a running of the Bulls bar, the running of the Bulls better be on the damn TV when it happens. You know what I mean? So I go in and I'm like, all right, the Super Bowl's on. Do I have to ask you to put the Super Bowl on? Because if I do, then that's a problem. That means the person and it's like, I'll come in and it's like, again, a pet peeve of mine, but you have to be in that brain, and I try to coach it up, and it's like, I don't want to come in and see like Judge Judy on the TV, right? It's an atmosphere. It's like there's something to put on. Trust me. Like if we're going to be like, this is what we're trying to promote, there's something on because it's global. You know what I mean?
Can you teach that? Is I guess what I'm curious about.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So how would that go?
Literally, I wrote a book on it. I made a binder. It was like, listen, this is how you turn it on. This is how you get to this. So all my TVs are connected, and I did that through Growing Pains. I realized that even if you put them all at the same time, I had servers ready, sync up the TVs, press play now. One would buffer and it would be off, and the experience sucks. Someone's like, goal, and then 2 seconds later, someone's like, goal. So I had to do research, and I figured out a device almost like that. It's up in the HVAC system, and I literally have run cables myself, 100-foot cables up through the ceiling to get them all synced. So you
have one HDMI, and then it splits
8 ways, and then I have a splitter to the splitter to get the other 3 TVs on it, and then I can split that splitter into 2 and have 2 different things going on. I can get every TV to have everything on one individual thing.
So how many different splitters do you have?
I have 3 different splitters. 2 of them are 4-port. One of them is an 8-port.
Okay, so how can you have the same TV on one splitter getting different channels?
So now you have to split the HDMI port. So I have one that has specifically HDMI 2.
Okay.
And HDMI 3.
So,
and then I can put an individual TV on an individual stream.
So you'd have to. So you'd have the one HDMI that would be
where I can do everything
back to the interface or whatever you call it.
The box.
The box.
Yeah.
But you could go to a different HDMI. And
so I have one
stream something separate.
One of the 8 HDMI ports has the HDMI 2 port, which has the 4 splitter. That's the HDMI 2 splitter.
How long did it take you to get that?
Oh my God. I would have people calling me at home. They're like, I can't get this TV to work. I'd go home and come back and do it. It took me I would say a year almost to get it.
Tweak it.
Yeah, to finally do all the research. And this is what I went to the Geek Squad and Best Buy, and they were like, came up here with this pie in the sky. They turned me into an ESPN zone, like I was Vegas, or they were like, this is gonna be a wall of TVs, and we can get this manifest. You can do it here, this big hub. And I was like, no. I just need to get what device do I need? And they're like, this. And I was like, okay. So I did it all myself and just troubleshot it. And, you know, every once in a while it still has a problem, and you just got to, like, you got a room full of people, and they're, like, waiting to watch their specific game, and you're, like, sweating. You feel like you're on stage. You forgot your lines. You're like...
So back to, like, this idea of, like, marketing. Like, what was your approach in the early days to marketing? How were you getting butts and seats?
I was basically just saying, like, you can get your whatever. Like, again, it was mostly soccer-based in the beginning because I was like, I'm going for that soccer audience. And in doing so, I was like, I'm not your typical place where you have to go in. Like, I will have your game. If people call up, like, can you get, like, this game? I'm like, yes.
Where were you finding your soccer audience? Like, what were you
Online,
doing?
yeah, social. Just tagging the right things, using the right, you know, SEOs. You know, I've had 3 or 4 marketing teams doing, you know, scans and stuff like that. I've spent astronomical amount of dollars. I was doing low budget. I was doing it myself.
So you knew that you needed the lockdown, the keywords for soccer bar in southern New Hampshire, or even just in New England.
Yeah, I had a big reach because of the destination point that this was.
And you got the train. I mean, what about? So you're using social media. You're joining communities, different Facebook communities.
Yeah,
and
it's
like
I'm a part of every like soccer fan group. You know, because they get together in chat rooms.
Are you spamming these groups? Are you saying like, "Hey, come to my restaurant, let's soccer"? Like, how do you?
I grassroots it, word of mouth. That's all I do. It's
so
like,
what does that look like on these Facebook groups?
It's like someone will ask, like, "Where do you go for this?" You know,
so you're constantly just scanning and looking for people.
Yeah, I
are you using like any kind of like AI to like alert you if this then that?
Not really. It's like it's not that difficult because it's like I know the schedule like the back of my hand.
Right.
And it's like, all right, if you're looking for this. And then, like, again, in grassrootsing it, like, you came in, you're like, this place is phenomenal. I'm in this Arsenal chat group online. I'm going to tell them all, you know? Yeah. And it's like, if they're in a 90-minute, you know, radius, they'll come and make a day of it. Because it's like, again, you're not going out for, like, you know, I don't know what, like, you know, American sports. Most of the time they're on at night. It's a Tuesday night. How many Celtics games you stay up till 10 o'clock to watch a regular season? There's 82 of them. This is like a unique thing. It's like, our football. It's on Sunday. It's a short-lived season, and they only play so many like important matches where you're like, all right, I need to be there to be a part of it.
Well, I was curious. Like, what is the soccer season?
It's long. It's August to May. I get 2 months off, and then those are the ones where they cram in the World Cup and
so what do you
Euros.
Do from June to July?
There's an international tournament, I assure you.
Okay.
Yeah. It is slower by all means.
Well, I think it's probably a slow season for most. I mean, in New Hampshire,
I'm not Seacoast.
People are going to they're going to the lakes. You know, they're going
to an outside bar because they can only do it.
You don't
like
have your schools here. You know,
right.
So
yeah, it is slower. We do get creative. My anniversary's in June, so it's always like that's a big night. You know, for like, hey, we made it another year. And then we give some people time off. And
what about like? Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, we fluctuate the hours, stuff like that. Yeah.
What about guerrilla marketing? Have you ever like tried just going and finding like? What about like pickup soccer leagues?
Yeah,
going in and just like handing out. Like if you're playing soccer, you're probably a fan of soccer. Yeah. Right?
Well, I have a partnership with like you know, I used to play for Seacoast United and their men's league, so I have a lot of people from that. Like it. So as far as like the guerrilla marketing style, it's more like I just need to get one person in here. I basically am a social host. I walk around, I talk to, hey, why are you here? What how'd you find out? That's all I want to know. Obviously, what's working, what's not. So I kind of do my own like market research when I get somebody in the, like for example, this past weekend, Chelsea played Manchester United. It's full house. I'm turning people away. I'm like, sorry, that's like when you go to a restaurant, me and you go out, and it's like, oh, it's busy tonight. Yeah, that table's getting up in 15 minutes. I can tell you exactly how long that person's going to be sitting at that table.
What happens when a regular rolls in and they don't have a seat?
That breaks my heart the most.
Yeah.
They know now, and I kind of like know who's watching what, and they know now. I have standing room, so I always get. And then the regulars know each other,
right?
Which is my favorite part about the whole business,
right?
Is these people didn't know each other before,
yeah, sure.
And now they're like going out to concerts together, you know, and they're That's like cool. Young, old, you know, gay, straight, you know, man, woman, you know, kid, you know, 55-year-old retired guy, you know, like that's my favorite part about it. But when a regular comes in, and I'm like, you're really putting me in a tough spot, buddy. It's like, you know better, you know. So I'll get people, and then my regulars are like. They have my phone number.
Right.
They call me. I call them. I'm like, hey, are you coming in for this game? Because I don't want you to walk in the door and be like, what the hell?
Right.
You know, I'll make a reservation for a guy that doesn't even make a reservation.
Right.
You know, PBR Phil gets a spot at the bar, and it's like, well, you know he's coming.
So what haven't we discussed up to this point in terms of things that you just learned the hard way, things that you wish you knew?
Oh, man, I'm still learning those things.
What was like the next? You talked about staffing. What was the next big struggle?
What up, unstoppable restaurant owners and operators? We have to interrupt today's video to let you know that Restaurant Unstoppable and Restaurant Systems Pro, we're taking our relationship to the next level. Beginning in July of 2024, Fred Langley, CEO of Restaurant Systems Pro, is making himself available once a week in Restaurant Unstoppable Network to answer all of your restaurant systems questions, whether it's the profit margins. He will look at your P&L. Bring your P&L. He will take a look at that. He will dissect it. He will help you find your profit, whether that be through budgeting, inventory management, costing recipe cards, labor, checklists, you name it. He is a master on restaurant systems, and he's making himself available to you. Fred Langley and Restaurant Systems Pro started as a consulting firm, and for over 16 years, they've been helping their clients increase their profit by 10% or more. What are you waiting for? Click the link below to join our Facebook group, Restaurant Unstoppable Network.
It's just spending, man. It's just like you have to do these things. You have to, like, there's certain things you have to spend money on, and you're like, there's no ROI, and you're like, could I be doing this differently? Could I do it on my own? Or, just that aspect of it, the cash flow portions, like it comes in, it's great, but it goes right back out, and you're like, man, like I need linens, it's
Right.
like, but it costs me this much money. Like, oh, I need, whatever beer, like so much money. Like, what do you charge? You got to charge the right amount to make a profit, but you also can't be like the highest, Guinness in town. I don't care how
Right.
good it is. It's like there's a certain level to that. So like, this just it's, to me, it's managing the spending to the budget. And again, you can look at the stats all you want and be like, all right, well, we're not selling that much food, but you have to have a cook in the kitchen.
Right.
Like you have to have the guy there in case somebody does want to buy food.
Yeah, and like, not to put you on the spot, but I mean, I like to do a little bit of research before I talk. I try not to know too much. I honestly like to go into these conversations with an open mind. I just like to listen and share your story. But I do like to look like at Google to kind of see where they're at. You got kind of raked through the coals a couple weeks ago or 2 months ago.
Which one?
Were you talking about like cooks walking out?
Yeah.
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 So tell us that
Dude.
story.
I was, again, first down to a bare bones staff. This particular guy was a wrong hire, and I knew it.
Yeah.
And even my manager knew it. My manager at the time, he's a school teacher. He's phenomenal. And we negotiated a way to have him stick around because he didn't want to like lose all his knowledge, but he got his dream job of being a school teacher. He had a steady job. Right. And he's like, listen, I want to stay on. He's like, I want to, do some menu ideas. I'm going to come in and make some recipes. I'll still manage the team, but I'm not on call to like come and work. And we hired this guy, and he was, which again, the wrong guy. And we knew it right away. Like, he kind of made it stink like the first day. I was like, it's pretty comfortable to be like talking like this.
Right.
But again, beggars can't be choosers.
Right.
And this guy literally full house, walked off the job. Like, tickets lined up. And the thing is, and I try to tell this, and there's no amount of times I can say this to people, even the servers, we flat seat here.
Yeah.
So
Well, the game starts. People are rolling in.
I'm here to watch the game.
Yeah.
So they're here at the exact same time. They leave at the exact same time, right? We try our best. The servers try their best. Again, they know. I go, listen, guys, they're here for 2 hours. They're going to be happy. Like, let's stagger these tickets, right? So this guy he was unstable to handle it by himself, which the next day I have a guy on Sunday, literally the same scenario, and he's back there like laughing it up and just handling it.
Yeah.
And he's like, it is
It's
what
a
it is.
special job. I mean, I really wish there was more equity between front of house and back of house because it takes a special person
Absolutely.
to keep your cool, to manage all those tickets, to not lose your shit.
He left us like high and dry. So, and again, I didn't have like a bullpen of like guys ready to go. He was the only guy in the line. So it's like, and I ran around. I was like, what tables haven't got their food? One of them was a regulars, and I ran over to them. They're like, we're not going to not keep coming.
Right.
Sucks, man. Feel bad. They were like more like friends with me than they were like guests, and they were like, we get it. They ended up getting their food. Hour 30 minutes later, when a cook came in and was able to like salvage, he like threw tickets away.
Right.
So like stuff like that. I mean, that was like unprecedented.
So how hard is it to open? Like, what do you think it's a challenge not to have that strategic partner, that not to have that back of house anchor?
Yep.
That like. So what is your solution for that?
Essentially, I just learned on the job, and it's like I trust the people that show me that they are capable and desire to help, and I have very few of them. And I always say, I always joke around, like, if I could just run it with these guys, these 5 people, I'd be fine.
Right.
But that doesn't cover the hours needed to sustain the business. And I just constantly search for those people that give a shit. It's like, so again, I I have an offsite guy that I can like just like literally like vent to. He's like, oh, I'll step in and I'll help out. I'll pop in. Like he only has 2 days off. He's a teacher, but he can come in and help. I have a guy that's been with me for 3 years now, and he was a low level cook, and he just like cares.
Right.
And whatever his skills lacked, he made up for in desire, and he was like, I'll do whatever it takes. I want this place to succeed. Same thing with a couple of bartenders. One of them that's working right now. He's like phenomenal. He's like, whatever it takes, I'll help.
Are there things you've done in terms of like streamlining process to take some of that burden off the kitchen? Like what?
Yep. Menu gets pared down to the one of the big beefs was like the amount of prep time, because I was like, oh, we're doing a lot of stuff from scratch because scratch kitchen, like we want to make these things by hand, and I was like, what is burdening you guys to the point where you're like getting stressed out? And they were like, XYZ. I was like, all right, well, we have to have this, like that's like non-negotiable.
What were some of those things that were tough?
It was just like we did a lot of Gaelic rolls. It was a perfect example.
What is that?
A Gaelic roll is like an egg roll, but it's like corned beef. It was basically corned beef in a roll. We'd hand roll those. We do sausage rolls. We do we did breakfast egg rolls. So a lot of those like things that were just like done by hand, are hand cut.
Are those big English staples?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. People come in for those. Scotch eggs, for example. That was like, that's a non-starter. Don't even think about it.
Right.
But
Fish
it's like,
chips.
Yeah, you have to be done. I mean, those aren't like prep heavy, but some of the prep heavy stuff, I was like, listen, these are negotiable. I'll take these off the menu, off the plate. You don't have to worry about that. So anything I could do to keep the sanity of the kitchen, keep the processes going where they're not like literally back. Again, it's also hand in hand with spend. You're like, all right, let's lower this freaking grocery list.
Right. I think that's probably been one of the most significant things you can do to streamline process, to cut back on training, to cut back on cost of goods. Just what are we really good at?
Yep.
What are our bigger, and just let's just put all of our energy into like
100%.
At the end of the day, people want a pint, they want to watch the game, and you can have outstanding service. If the food is okay and you do everything else phenomenally, like you will be fine.
Yeah.
And I think we put a lot of emphasis on the food. Like, you can't serve shit.
Right.
But if you just remove all the want that, or like the want to haves, and just focus on the need to haves.
Yeah.
It's that much easier for your team.
Well, and also like you think about, you get these places that are just like, this guy's a hot dog stand. He's been in business for 20 years. You're like, what the hell?
Right.
And he's like, well, he just does that right.
Right.
He does it right.
Right.
A Chinese food place. You're like, well, that's where you go to get Chinese food. Like, that's where you go to get Mexican. Like, that's the place. And it's like, when you're everything, you're like, oh, we also do Tex-Mex, and we do burgers, and we do, pasta and linguine. You're like, okay, you're a Cheesecake Factory.
Exactly.
Like,
only one place does that well, and it's the Cheesecake Factory, because
right.
they've locked down that market.
Yeah, they were like, we're going to be everything.
Yeah. But that is so hard to do, and they take such good care of their staff, and they were able to build that up while that was still a thing that was like normal.
Right.
And they're known for it. I don't know how much longer they're going to be able to sustain that, honestly speaking.
But again, when you would go, you'd get the same thing over and over again.
So what are you doing anything to like influence reviews online right now? I think you're at a 4.4, which is solid.
Yeah, I mean, I
felt so bad, man. Like I cringe at reading these reviews because
I hate when I see it.
You see people who are just stupid too. Like people don't realize. Like,
I hate the opinion-based ones.
A 3-star, like, this was great, everything was awesome. They
literally
leave a good review.
Yeah, and then
they give you 3 stars.
Yeah.
Like, it was awesome. And
we'll be back. You're like,
I think somebody commented, like, I don't think they know how much this hurts business. I'm like, I don't think you know how much your 2-star review hurts business.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, there was one thing, I can't remember what it was.
It was the most recent one. He was like, yeah, the food was great.
Service was friendly. Food was great.
Yeah.
Atmosphere was awesome.
It was something about
there wasn't parking.
Yes, that was it. Yeah.
I had
it was always busy, but they're not.
Yeah, it always looks busy, but it's not.
You're like,
and there isn't parking. 2 stars.
Yeah.
I'm like, that has more of an impact on the parking situation.
I'd rather no reviews than like I was like, come talk to me.
It's just infuriating.
Tell your friends and family. That's fine. I the beginning, I was very passionate. I would reply. I don't know if you go way back, you'll see I reply to every review.
Right. Well, I mean,
and then I got to the point where I was like, this is a losing battle.
And you see those stupid reviews, and you're like, this could easily be a 4.6 restaurant.
Yeah.
If people just weren't just dumb, like they just. This is one of the reasons why I love Ovation. Have you heard of Ovation?
No.
It's a tool out there that's a customer feedback tool.
Okay.
And I feel like the world we live in today is broken. Like, it's not meant.
Yes.
To. It's like. it's just too easy to fuck up someone's business with digital things.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And like
Faceless.
they're not designed for the restaurant. They're designed for the consumer, and the consumer is fucking ignorant. I'm sorry, pardon my language.
Yeah.
So the consumer, like, if you're not knowledgeable about something, or if you just don't understand like the difference between a 4.0 and a 5.8 or 4.8, like
how much that affects it. Again, when
So-
you have such a small sample size, there's only
when the
200
system's
reviews.
broken to begin with, I believe in tools to counter
Yep.
that stupid shit. So like what they do basically, there's a QR code I think on the table is the way
Okay.
it works, right?
Yeah.
And like you can leave a review, and like it will ask, or it's like a survey, and they say like, did you have a good experience?
Yeah, yeah.
And if the answer is yes, then it's like, would you leave us a 5-star review? So what you can start to do is you can start to coax 5-star reviews out of
organically,
people.
yeah.
So like if like, oh, like how was your experiences? I think is like you can give me like, was it good or bad? Or
Yeah.
and if it's anything below a 5, then the manager's notified that there was a 3-star review before they ever get online. So you can go over there and be like, we saw that you gave us 3 stars.
Yeah, you
like
what's
what
up?
can we do to make it, like what was wrong? How can we make this right?
You're like, no,
We
everything
want
was
you to come
great.
back.
It's 3 stars. I can't give it a 5. You're
So like then you can fix it before they ever leave and go online.
Right.
But if it is a 5-star review, then they say, well, we would love to be able to share this on Google or like Yelp. And then it just like prompts that. So
Okay.
then you start getting because the system's broken to begin with, I
Right.
feel like you need to do things
yeah, it's only defense against
to defend
that,
yourself
yeah.
from broken fucking Yelp and
Yeah.
Google reviews that
100%.
aren't out to serve the restaurant.
And you can't do anything about it. You know,
Right.
like you'd have to have like so much proof that it was like a disgruntled employee or a lie.
Right.
And they're just like, nah, you know, that actually didn't fall under parameters of like taking off.
Right.
Like I got one just the other day. It was from a disgruntled employee's boyfriend. And I was like, the language in the review, right, was like so insider knowledge that it was
Right.
like it showed itself to be like, who said this? So I
Right.
took a picture and I put it in our group chat. Like, I didn't say any words, just, and then I immediately go and search like social media, and it's like her. She was working tonight.
yeah.
This was the guy's name, because at least you can't be anonymous in that regard, unless you
Right.
put like freaking some Homer Simpson for your thing, which they kind of weed out. But I was like, problem solved. Like I know exactly where that came from. You know, on a busy night when there's only 2 people, they pool tips. And she was like, this place robs you of your tips. Don't ever go there. And it's like, do you think that's the case? Do you
Oh my
honestly
gosh.
think, yeah? So.
Yeah, man. It's just I think when like those review systems came out, it was like probably one of the biggest like detriments to the industry, just because it hurts so
Yeah.
much, and there's like no defense.
Right. And that's why it would happen to me at the gym as well. And again,
Yeah,
it would just
and it's
be
ignorant people.
Yeah.
It's either they don't know what they're saying, or they're just douchebags.
Yeah.
Pardon my language.
No, exactly. I would get, again, the opinion-based ones. I came here, one of them was like, they didn't have the beer he wanted. That's like, well, is that my fault?
When
Like,
you can give somebody anonymity, it brings out a side of them that
100%.
it wouldn't be suitable in any other situation.
Right.
It's a broken system.
They would never do it to your face.
Right, and I feel like I'm allowed to bitch about this shit because I don't own a restaurant, so I
Yeah.
feel like I can like defend the
Yeah,
owner
yeah.
and be
Yeah,
like,
you're-
no, objective opinion here.
Hey, we're not all the same.
Don't own a
Like,
restaurant. Have spoken to over like thousands at this point
Yeah.
of like restaurant owners. Like, you guys
It's
are
so
getting raked
crushing.
over the coals.
Yeah, it's so
like
crushing.
it's not right.
And I would write to these people. I'm like, listen, what is your goal here? Like, you don't like the restaurant, don't come. It's a voluntary process.
Right.
Number 2, tell your friend, if you see a bad movie, I'll tell you, hey, Eric, dude, that movie sucks. Don't go see it, right? That's one thing. Tell your friends and family don't go to the restaurant. But this is how I feed my kids, house them, you know, and
Right.
what your goal is. Okay, that bad review is the one that put me over the top to go out of business.
Right.
Are you feeling better now? Like,
Right.
got him.
No, I
Thank
feel you.
God.
But again, Ovation. I mean, I know that's not your recommendation, but when I see things like that, I'm like, because I walked in this place, it's a cool spot, man.
Thanks.
Like, I
Yeah.
want to hang out
Right.
here, you know, like. And when you see things like that, like I just feel like I need to spread the word. It's worth the wait. It's weight in gold because of the amount of like you can prompt good reviews,
Right.
And like
Right.
you can also
Deal
get
with-
feedback.
right.
The customer feedback is invaluable too because you're prompting all this feedback, like what was good, what wasn't good. Like, oh, this. If you start seeing, hey, every time that this server is working and their tables are giving us bad reviews, like we need to work on this server. Like,
Yeah,
this
yeah.
server is an issue.
Right.
You get access to data you wouldn't otherwise.
No, that's great.
get
I'm definitely
access
looking up right after this.
you know, I'm there, and I'll say this: they're one of the companies I'm actively like pursuing right now.
Okay.
To be
partner.
I'm at this point where I'm trying to get away from sponsorship and get more into partnerships because I want to be able to choose the companies I promote.
Absolutely.
And they're like at the top. Like I send them like a weekly, like where we at, guys?
Yeah.
Let's come to terms.
that's
I
great,
want to
yeah.
promote the shit out of you.
Right.
I want to do it for free, but I got to pay the bills.
Right. Of course.
So where are we at today? Paint the picture of where you're at today. Like, how have you most evolved to be where you are today? Like, what has changed the most?
Now I know how to run a day to night. I know what to expect, how to staff. Like, again, now it's just getting more butts in the seats.
Right.
That's what really my focus is, more butts in the seats. I know my numbers. I know where they need to be.
Have you shifted the numbers? Can you give me like percentages of like how like that's
yeah,
worked?
like so what I'll tell you this, like, so it's very weird to like do like I do a check count, right? How many checks? It's hard to do guest count because sometimes the server will go over and it's me and you. It's like one. Because one check, where I'll take care of it. So I just do check count. Then I do check average. So the check count is very like, I told you, like October to October, right? 23. Why was October so good? And we were closed like 5 out of the 31 days. I wasn't closed for any of them this month last year. And the Rugby World Cup.
Yeah.
Okay. But what I monitor is check average. So those stats, like I can see the check average going up. Right. Okay. So they're spending more money while they're here. Great. So if you're not going to get more butts in the seats, you better get more money out of the butts.
Right.
So you're like, I need that guy. I need to have the same amount of people in here. And how do we extract? Is it more apps? Is it another drink? Are we getting more table touches? Are we offering the things that these guys want to spend money on? Because it's like, yeah, sure. Like, I might go, I'm not going to get to high end liquor. What if they want that? You know what I mean? I'm not going to get that. They're like,
well, have a bottle. Like, why not have that?
Option.
Yeah, right. For that one one person.
He's like, I want Glenlivet, and it's like, well, it costs me a lot of money, but I'm like, well, obviously my margins are baked into like that price. So things like that are like manipulable, and I do that now where I didn't before. I was just like, let's hope we get more this Tuesday than last Tuesday,
right?
And then more events and stuff like that. I instituted music bingo, trivia, which I didn't do in the beginning. It's like, I don't want this hokey stuff, and that stuff kind of dries out, but the people wanted it.
Right.
So it's like, is it for me? Is it for them? It's for them.
Right.
So I'm not going to do my thing.
How did you know what the people wanted?
It was more like trial and error. I did everything. I've done like themed nights. Like we did paint night. We did freaking like pumpkin carving in contests and stuff like that. I did a fashion show, and it was like, could you do this? And we're like, yeah, let's try that out. Or I went to something. It was like, oh, that's kind of fun. Like I was ignorant to it before, but I was like, oh, it's this. Like for example, there's 2 different like groups that the trivia people are like, I want to be the smartest guy in the room and win, be smart and like show off. The music bingo people are like, I just want to be in the background playing a game, but I don't really have to like get involved.
Right.
It's like, oh, Purple Rain is on. I have that, dude. And you're like, that's 2 different crowds, and one necessarily doesn't show up for the other. And so like those things I get more trial and error. I was like, I'll throw anything. I'll do a comedy night. I did music before.
So in terms of what you have tried, in terms of like whether it be like because you're so close to paying attention to the numbers, like what has been something that you've changed and you've like instantly seen like a tick up on like revenue or like whatever?
Tuesday is busier than Monday and Wednesday solely because of music bingo.
Okay. Is that tonight?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, music bingo tonight. And then
Nice.
and then we have, people who are like seeking me out because they're like, oh, did you still have it? Is that seasonal? Is that like a couple? And I'm like, no, it's every Tuesday. They come in and again, that's a different crowd than the trivia crowd. So like that's, for example, like Tuesday. And then like Monday we do industry night like most people do. A lot of places are closed on Monday, so they get to have the day that's their Saturday or Sunday, and they come in and because I'm open 7 days a week. Because technically, like yesterday, for example, is 3:00 game is their Monday Night Football in England. So there's a game on at 3. I can't be closed. Today, for example, some places are closed. I'm open because it's Champions League, which is like basically the playoffs for soccer.
Well, yeah, that's one thing I'm curious about. Like, how do you manage, like, you have people come in. What time do you open?
Noon.
Yep. So why not open earlier? Aren't there games on that earlier than that?
Not
right?
during the week.
Not during the week.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, yes, they are, but then no one's like watching like the Pakistani, league or something like that. This is like the earliest I would have to open during the week for a game is 12:45.
5 hours ahead?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And then Ireland is 4 hours ahead. But again, so there's certain games that like, again, so I will get open at noon. Again, some people coming in just for lunch.
The games are usually at 5 o'clock out there?
Yeah. So like right now there's 3:00 games, and that's when their prime time games are.
3 p.m. their time.
Yeah, 3 p.m. Our time.
Yeah. Okay. So
that's
8 p.m.
Yep, their time. So open at noon, and then on the weekends. That's why I open at 7 a.m. on the weekends, because that's when there's a game on. Like there's a game on at 7:30 usually in England. In Scotland, there's a game on at 7 a.m. They're not huge draws, but sometimes they clash, and there's like 2 big teams playing.
Well, I mean, so I used to be a commercial pilot, and I was flying in Saipan, which is like where Guam is in the world, and I would fly the 7 p.m. to the 7 a.m. shift.
Okay.
And I would get off, and it would be like literally like 8 a.m. and I have worked a 12-hour shift.
Yeah.
And I wanted to go watch the Patriots.
Yep.
And the only place I could do that was at a breakfast restaurant that was a bar at night. And I would sit there at 8 a.m. and pound beers. And
that's awesome.
And everybody, and sometimes I would wear like my uniform without the lapels on it.
Yeah.
That was terrifying. But like, I just wanted to go watch my Patriots.
Right.
And I worked a full shift. And I just remember people like, wow, this guy is here
Getting
every
after it.
weekend, crushing it.
Yeah.
I'm like, no, it's the end of my day.
Yes, I'm done.
But, but
that's
there
the-
are people out there that
That's-
they want that, they need that, and they can't find it anywhere.
I also think, and this is kind of like an evolution of just like age.
Yeah.
I'm 43. I'm not sitting here. I'm like promoting alcoholism or whatever, but I'm like, I'm a day drinker. I'm not going out at clubs at night, anymore. I'm home with my kids on the couch, and I'm like, I want to go to a sports bar. I love soccer, and yeah, I can watch it on my couch if I had like Peacock or NBC, and it's like, but I want to also be around like a Patriots bar. You go there, you wear
Right.
your jersey, and you're like, yeah, we won. I'm like, we're a breakfast bar. You can come in, get a mimosa, Irish coffee, Bloody Mary, drink coffee. You don't have to drink at all. But
Right.
you're watching sports that are live. And
Yeah, you don't want to be insensitive because there's absolutely an issue, and especially in the restaurant industry with people who are surrounded by alcohol all the time.
All the time, yep.
So it's a real issue. You don't want to make light of it, but at the same time, I feel like it's like, listen, like we have been drinking alcohol from as far back as we were swinging from vines.
Exactly.
Like there's
Everyone
evidence
was
to
seeking
support
it out, yes.
that like we are one of 5 mammals that has an enzyme that can break down alcohol,
Yep.
and because we ate overripe fruit.
Yep.
So like it's a part of our species to kind of get like, I don't know if you believe in the drunken ape theory or like the
Yeah, of
stoned ape
course.
theory, but
Yeah.
like we've been messing with our like
yeah,
our
freaking
like,
prohibition.
Yeah,
you're like, we're still gonna do it.
it's just like I think it's a part of our human nature, but and there is a balance. I think there's a book out there called Drunk: How We Sip, Dance, and Stumbled Our Way into Society.
Okay.
And they get into a lot of like why it's such an issue today.
Okay.
Because there's alcohol's more abundant today
Mhm.
and stronger today than it ever has been. But if you're alive today, it's all you've known. But alcohol wasn't as readily accessible as it is
course,
today
yeah.
for the existence of
options.
humanity.
Yeah,
We
yeah.
were the like an average beer in Europe in like the 15th century was like 0.2% of ABV.
Right.
So like you weren't killing yourself getting drunk. So I think that we don't take that into consideration. So it's really just about moderation. But
Right.
drinking alcohol is so good for you.
It's-
And I know I'm not being funny. Like
That's
it's
what I was like. I always
good
say, I'm like,
for your soul. What you saying? What?
your camaraderie, just like it's another thing that you have in common with somebody else.
Right.
Another human
It
being.
lowers inhibitions.
Yeah.
There's evidence to support that we were never meant to coexist in the numbers that we exist in today. And
Yeah.
by like alcohol was one of the things that let us become agricultural, because we could now stay in one spot and not try to murder each other.
Right.
Because like we
We're
were never meant.
tolerating, yeah.
We were never meant to.
Right.
There's like which is ironic because when you drink alcohol, you are more likely. But it also at first it lowers your inhibitions.
Yeah.
Like it makes you more friendly.
That's the thing, and it's like it
shuts off the frontal lobe.
It's a communal like thing to be like, okay, I am safe here. I'm comfortable now that I am around people that are also like, it's not a closeted thing where you're like, okay, I gotta hide this, like drug use or something like that.
Yeah.
You're like, I can do this out in the open. I'm not ostracized from the community for doing it. I mean, obviously, you get to the point where you do become ostracized from the community if you overdo it.
Right.
But it's like the stigma of it is. That's one of the ones of vices that people are allowed to do. Again, you kick the smokers out. You're now all recreational marijuana, but you can't still do it inside. It's like
Right.
one of those last bastions of like things you can do that is like you can do as an adult, and you can do what you enjoy, whether it's you're drinking beer, you're drinking wine, you guys are just drinking having a whiskey or whatever. And I liken it to the same thing as like you enjoy soccer, you enjoy basketball, like whatever sport you're doing, you're around other people that like to do that. And that's what a bar's intention is, like just you're around here, feel comfortable, and we'll take care of the rest.
Right.
That's what I want to be able to do. Just walk in the door and I'll take care of the rest, kind of thing.
So where's your tech stack today? I'm looking over your shoulder in terms of like consumer facing tech, back of house tech, POS. Like, are you still with Lightspeed?
Yep. Still
Still
using
happy
them.
with them?
Yeah. They're fine. They're
Yep.
like, again, I know it by the back of my hand now. I can do it from my phone,
Right.
like stuff like that. Totally fine with that. As far as like, again, every streaming service known to man. I kind of do that myself. I teach the front of house staff, again, active content management. If it's on, it better be on. I print out a schedule for the week. Like, so when I'm not here, I'm like, this is what I'm going to promote. Like, this game better be on when someone walks in the door. Because I would like put it online and said, hey, come down at 3 o'clock because this game's going to be on. And they walk in there like, I don't see the game. And do I have to ask? Some people will come in and be like, oh, I guess he's not going to do it. I'm like too scared to ask.
Right.
And I'm just going to have a drink and leave.
I see you have Keno. Is that a big draw here?
Wasn't originally. I didn't have it originally. I didn't know what kind of element that would draw.
Right.
I didn't want the wrong element.
Right.
I had some regulars to go like, no, dude, you got to have it. And they come in for it, and they sit down, and they're like, they win. They're happy.
Yeah.
They stay longer. They probably tip better as well. I did that. The jukebox.
See that?
Didn't have that in the beginning. That was another recommendation from a regular. He used to own a restaurant.
What are you using?
It's called Touch Tunes.
Okay.
Phenomenal. The breakdown is the Touch Tunes gets 27%.
Okay.
And me and the guy that installed it split the rest.
Okay.
Free surround sound. So I can play the music. You can use the app. I pause it for the games, and then I get the surround sound for the games.
Okay.
Which would, when I pull down the
so
house
you get 32%?
volume.
Is that what it is?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. And it's
and
just
how much revenue does that pull in generally?
It's negligible. Most of the time, I'm playing the music to goose people to do it.
Yeah.
So it's like it's not much,
Okay.
But it's a service.
Yeah.
And again, if it pays for like a cable streaming service, it's fine by me. But
Got
again,
it.
people come in, they set the tune. I mean, the tone of like the night, and I'm happy to do that. But I also have a Pandora service where I'll just like leave it on that.
Got it. Any other like a services backup house like I don't know, like are you using for accounting, general ledger, labor, or anything like that?
Nothing like that. Like I have a bookkeeper, but I send her like these are stuff that comes right out of my POS system.
What
those
about
facts.
reservations?
I had Open Table. It was a waste of money.
Okay.
To me, because I wasn't using it for what it needed.
Yeah.
But my my marketing company has a widget that does it now. So I get like alerts. They made a reservation online, so we have a little spot on the website because I do sell out for games,
right?
Bigger matches. So I was like, I urge people to make reservations. Make reservations when like Arsenal are playing Tottenham. And
I wonder how like Talk would work with that, because Talk is based off of like an experience-based dining.
Yeah.
So if the experience is the game,
yeah,
and you have big games, you can basically have reservations on a sliding scale.
Oh,
so like,
gotcha, yeah.
if it's not a big game,
Yeah.
but you expect to be full,
yeah,
then like. I mean, you can maybe reserve a certain amount, like the good seats or something like that.
We do that. Like we make because I can fit 108 in here, so we'll reserve like 50.
Right.
So I don't want to turn away every walk-in.
Well, it was created for prefix meals, like the Alinias of the world, where like like on a Friday night,
prime ribs.
Yeah, you have a fixed meal. You know exactly what you're going to get, but that same experience on a Friday night is more valuable than it is on a Wednesday night because more people go out on Friday.
Right.
So you should and you can charge more for that experience because there's a higher demand for it.
True.
So like, where's the best seat in this place, right?
Right.
You want to reserve that seat for the Manchester game?
Yeah.
That's $1,000.
Yeah.
Like it's the best seat in the house.
Right.
You know you're going to be here
spot.
for that game.
You're right in front of the bar.
You're going to have the best seat on the best night.
Yeah.
$2,000. You know somebody's going to come and pay that money for it because they want it.
Right.
And it will probably be booked before it ever sells out.
Right.
If the space sells out. Like I don't think we should be ashamed of doing that because it's a value that we're offering.
100%. Yeah.
And somebody in this place is going to be able to afford that. Like why not give it the option?
Well, the World Cup was a perfect example. I mean, I could have sold this place out 4 times over. And I was like turning away. I'm like, I can't. I'm at capacity. And it's like I had people like, how much?
So I feel
much
like
gets me in the door?
Like the biggest nights of the week, you can use that reservation with Talk. If you were to go to Reserve recently, or sorry, Resi purchased Talk.
Oh, did
recently.
they? Yeah.
So
it's a Resi thing. Yeah.
I think that's probably one of the reasons why they purchased them, because of their technology.
Sliding,
we're in the experience economy,
right?
Like this place is gonna why not book out all of your seats and treat your seats like a stadium seat?
Yeah. You get the best seat in the house.
How much money are you gonna make that night?
Right.
I mean, should you feel guilty for that?
Right. That's a good point.
Oh.
Yeah.
Some thoughts.
That's right.
So where do you think you're heading? Like, what's your vision going forward?
I'm still literally one day at a time here. Like I opened during COVID, right? So, and then no one was missing me, so I had no stats to go off. Was I doing great? Because it was COVID, and I was and to be honest with you, I was kind of like, I need to make money. I was breaking some rules during COVID. I mean, New Hampshire, it was a little different than Massachusetts, where I was from. But there was days where I was like, I'm not sitting every other seat. Like, I'm selling this place out.
Right.
So, and I got some bad reviews because of that. This guy doesn't care. I'm like, I kind of don't, and not to get put politics into it, but I was like, I need to make money. And,
right. It's about survival.
right.
I mean,
So that's like year
I need to
one
get into
is
it.
like I made it through year one. Okay, great. And then like it still was like COVID. I mean, we still had to wear masks and stuff. And like, yeah, you can come in, sit every other seat. Then you got to wear masks in here. And so then year two, I was like, okay, now I'm doing those stats year over year. And I'm like, well, again, do I know that this was a down year or was it an up year? Because now everything's kind of back to normal and people are going back to their like place that they were regular before. And then like year three, I kind of like, that's when I lost all my my good people. So I'm like, I'm going into year five. I just passed year 4 in June. And
Congratulations, man. That's a
thank you.
hurdle.
Yeah, that's why I'm still like, where's the future? I'm like, hopefully it's here. Like
Right.
I'm just still fighting like the good
Are
fight.
things slowing down or picking up for you?
They're picking up, but not as fast as like I need them to. So like you're still burning through like cash. Like I luckily had like some stuff like fall my way. Like I couldn't get PPP loans, but I got employee
Right.
retention credits because I kept everybody during COVID.
Right.
You know, so some of that stuff like it benefited me to open during that time.
Right.
You know,
I mean, I still think with that train being like literally like we can see
We
the
drop 'em off
platform
right here,
right
yeah.
here. You know, if like, I would get on that train and I would go to every soccer field and just be like the best
Yep.
like soccer pub in New England.
Yep.
Just see that platform right there, like just hit all those different markets
Yeah.
and like filled it. I mean, I if I was a soccer fan and this place existed and I lived close to a train that could drop me off right in front.
yeah, and drop me off at home.
Yeah, I feel like there's this.
So what happened was I had a budget set for marketing for like placards on
Yeah.
on the trains, and then the train stopped running because
Oh,
it's like I couldn't tie that money up.
right.
So and then like they were in a big flux when like everything came back, and they were like, yeah, everyone was like, we don't even have a marketing person anymore. It was like, so that kind of like went by the wayside. I never
Right.
really like that, but the original business plan, that was like every train car was going to have like stop number what,
Yeah.
Dover.
So when I'm home, I forget to offer context to the listener. So we're in Dover, New Hampshire, and there's a train that goes straight into Boston. I don't. It's the Downeaster.
Yeah, Amtrak.
Amtrak. So literally, this line goes all the way to. You could take
Faneuil
a train to Miami.
Yep.
If you wanted to,
Yep.
you'd have to make a few
Change
connections.
at Faneuil Hall, but you go
Yeah, yeah.
literally into the North Station.
Yeah.
And like,
So if you're like between here in Boston, there are at least 5 or 6 stops, where you hit like major markets.
Oh,
You
yeah.
hit, from here, you hit Dover, we're in Dover. You
Yep.
hit Durham, you hit Exeter, you hit
Haverhill. Yep.
you hit, and then you start getting
And
into like
Massa.
Woburn
Yep.
and like all these major markets.
Yep.
Or you could even bring people down from Portland.
Yeah.
Like there's nothing like this in most of those markets that I know. At
Exactly.
least Exeter, at least Durham, at least
Yep.
Haverhill. I know there isn't anything like this.
Yep.
And there's a lot of, I mean, not to like make it like about race, but there's a lot of Hispanic people in Haverhill, and they love their soccer.
Absolutely.
You
And
know, like it's huge in those cultures.
The Seacoast United Soccer Club is like also in those markets. So
Yeah.
it's like that's another thing where like they're drawing their, kids and their parents. If you're a parent of a kid who plays Seacoast soccer, which I am of 2, it's a lot of money. And they're passionate about soccer.
Yeah.
Like, you don't play for that club because you're not shelling out, like $4,000 for 2 kids without being like, I like this.
Right.
So, I try to pair with them as much as I can, but yeah, like I said, the train, that was the full intention of this location. It's
Right.
like I can cast a wider net.
Right. So the mission statement of this podcast is to change the world through inspiring, empowering, and transforming the restaurant industry. I do think that this industry has transformative power. It's massive. We connect with the youngest people. We provide them their first opportunities into the workforce.
Absolutely, yeah.
So in terms of transformation, like what do you think should and needs to change about our industry to move in the right direction? Like what's not right about our industry, if anything?
Here's like, this is, I mean, it might be so niche, but you go on these like social media, someone will like, hey, where's the best, pizza? Literally 148 comments, 148 different places. Maybe like 2 people say Epicurio, right? They're like, yeah, Epicurio is the best pizza in the world. And it's like, guys, like your answer is a Google search. Like you just named every place in town, right? If you're passionate about a place, help them, recommend them, get more like-minded people. It's like, again, if I saw a horror movie and I like horror movies, I'm not going to recommend it to someone who's scared of horror movies, right? I'm going to recommend it to people who like horror movies, right? If you help the business by being genuine with like your responses, because that's how people are doing it now. They're like, everyone's about experiences, and be like, hey, I know I'm not competing against, La Dolce Vita. Like, he's an Italian fine dining place, right? So if someone's like, hey, man, where do I go in Dover? I'm not going to be like, oh, June Cork Pub for everything.
Right.
Like, help out, because again, they're like, my number one, like, it's sad because it's like I can see it happen to anybody, and I have seen it happen to people where it's like, what happened to that place? I used to love it. Well, you didn't love it enough.
Right.
You didn't go enough. You didn't tell people to go enough. I'm not expecting everyone to come here every single day, right?
Right. You think about what we do spend our money on, and it's just like, what's more important?
Right.
New shoes, new jeans, like a new, like, I think Amazon and
my God,
making it so easy to make
one click.
Yeah, to make like impulsive purchasing decisions.
$15 here.
How much money do we spend on just bullshit?
It gets delivered to the house.
Yeah, right there. Like,
that's the thing. So, like, in my view, it's like, if you like a place, let's go to it and get people to go to, like, help them with their, like, I shouldn't be the only one being like, hey, my place is great. If you think the place is great, help me out and tell other people as well.
How much money do we spend on groceries and throw away?
Jesus.
I mean, like 50, like on average, I think 50% of the food that's purchased is thrown away. Like, that's just crazy. We're just not good at spending money as a culture.
Nope.
We could be way more intentional about how we support.
Absolutely. And it's just the supporting the local. Because you can walk into a Chili's and be like, oh, it's Tuesday night. And it's like, there's 6 tables going. And I'm like, I got like 1, right? And I'm like, well, the 6 tables to them is also dead, right? But it's a corporation that's backed by, just a bank account that's like, okay, this location is paid for by, a franchisee, and they don't give a shit, But I give a shit. I'd take all 6 of those people right now. You know what I mean? And it's like, help the business. If they blow their opportunity, by all means, like, that's the transformation I'd like to see. Is just like, everybody has their place. Help that place out, just like however you can. Again, you're not going to review it every single day, but you can tell people, like, hey, if you're not going there, man, you're missing out.
Right.
You know what I mean?
So again, the mission statement: change the world through inspiring, empowering, and transforming the restaurant industry. How have you personally transformed? How are you a better man today than the man you were 4 years ago when you started this?
Better.
Stronger.
Yeah, I would say, like, I'm able to, not wear my emotions on my sleeve as much as I did before. I would take everything personally, whether it was positive or negative, oh, everything's great, I'm awesome, or like, oh, I got to close this place down, man, I suck at this,
right.
I'm just like more like, just go next day, not too high, not too low.
Yeah.
That's how I've transformed literally myself, because it's like, in the beginning, I was kind of done with the health club industry, and I was like, I need to get out of here. And I was so excited about this, and I was like, too excited, and then I was like, everything's great, never going to be bad. And then I was like watching the numbers go down. I'm like, what am I doing wrong? I'm like, oh, I'm actually the one responsible for this.
Yeah,
like,
man.
Yeah.
So what's one thing about your business, a value, a process, a system that's uncommon and makes you truly unstoppable?
I mean, it's just like the care I give to my guests, their relationships with each other, with my employees. I truly believe, like, I am making people have lifetime friendships just through here, which makes it's the best part of the whole thing. I don't care about the money. I don't want to like open 10 of these and like drive a Lamborghini. I love when I hear, like, we went out last night with this person. A woman behind me gets picked up by regulars just because she can't drive, just to come here. Like, that's the thing. I've been to places where, like, the owner is, like, friendly with everybody, but, like, that's my goal, is to make sure that everybody here is, like, enjoying themselves and, like, meeting other people and, like, forming relationships because of here.
I love that, man.
Yep.
Awesome stuff. So this is the last question. If you got the news, you'd be leaving this world tomorrow. All the memories of you, your work, and your restaurant would be lost with your departure, with the exception of 3 pieces of wisdom you could leave behind for the good of humanity and your legacy. What would those 3 pieces of wisdom be?
Oh, man, that's on the spot. Do it.
1.
Yep. Just do it. And be invested.
2.
No absenteeism. You gotta fully buy in, and don't sweat the small stuff, man.
3.
It's just too much to worry about. It's a big picture thing.
John, this has been a lot of fun, my friend. So this is the last question. I said that was going to be the last, but this is the official last
All right,
question.
cool.
I find my guests through word of mouth. I believe word of mouth should be the most trusted way to find the people through conversation, not a Facebook question, word of mouth, but like eye to eye, face to face. Who do you respect and admire in the industry? Somebody that if I got them as a guest on the show and you knew that they were a guest on the show and you wanted to listen to them spill their guts, what they know and how they run their business, like who is that for you?
It's easy. Her name is Deborah Ball.
Deborah Ball, and
she owns a coffee shop in Newburyport, and it was 4 or 5 different restaurants, markets, prior to, and she opened around the same time I did, and she kills it because she cares. She's there all the time. Her employees stick with her. We chat every time I go in to get coffee every morning, and we have the same issues. At the same time, we'll cry on each other's shoulder and complain, and but she is phenomenal to the community. It's everyone goes there. And I don't want to call out and say it's expensive, but it's just worth the experience.
Well, you know what? I think that it's funny. The places that are expensive tend to stay in business longer.
She just does a great job, and you go like, yeah, it's not just coffee. It's
because it costs money to run this business, and you gotta make the money. And if you're doing good work, and you're delivering good product, that has to come from somewhere.
Exactly.
And the consumers that want that shit, they're gonna pay for it.
And she puts it back into the business and her employees. She's phenomenal.
Right.
And again, it's not like a sit down restaurant; it's a coffee shop. But she's like, she cares about her people, remembers their names. There's a ton of stuff for kids, and again, we talk to her every single day. Deborah Ball.
What's the name of the coffee shop?
Olives
Look
Bakehouse.
I'm coming after.
It's named after her dog.
Is that in the tannery as well?
No. It's before you get downtown. So it's like as you go. I mean, there's only 2 streets into town. It's on High Street.
Got it.
It's like the first thing you see, like when you get to like Newburyport proper.
Got it. Look out, Deborah Ball. I'm coming after you. I'd love to get you on the show. And how can we connect if we enjoyed today's conversation? If we're ever in New England and we want to catch a soccer game, where's the best way to follow you and connect?
It is at the June Cork. I put up reservation links. We're at 66 3rd Street in Dover, New Hampshire. It's a great community.
Are you looking for a chef?
I'm always looking for people.
Yeah,
always looking for people.
So if we want to maybe inquire about a job, Instagram, is that the best place?
Yeah, I guess my name, it's John at thejunecorkpub.com. And either on social media as well. However you can connect with me, whatever's easiest for you.
Awesome.
Like, drop in and fill out an old school application, whatever it is. I'm going to get back to you because, again, I'm always looking for talent.
John, I can't do what I do without people like you being willing to share your story, to get open, to get vulnerable, and there is no questioning, my man. You are unstoppable.
Thanks,
you.
bud.
Cheers.
Appreciate it.